Right, now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Welcome back to the Pick and Go podcast. It's where you find out all things good and bad around Super Rugby Pacific 2024. And I'm all alone this weekend. Well, this week in studio. Pity Weepu's not here. But he is around. And we've found him. We've tracked him down. He's a bit like Dora the Explorer. Where in the world is Pity Weepu?
I was thinking more come San Diego. Currently in Waitaki with First 15, we're here at Forest Lakes for our camp. So boys have been working pretty hard and we're putting in through their paces before our season starts next week.
Oh, wow. So are there like, what do you call them? Confidence courses or obstacle courses up there at Forest Lakes for them to get stuck into, or?
I think quite a few of those boys might be a bit shit scared of the heights, so we won't stick to putting them in areas that they might be a bit scared of. But no, we're pretty much just hammering them with fitness and trying to make sure that we get all our dot the old bloody I's and cross the T's side of things with our structure and game plan. So yeah.
Right. As per normal, we're joined once again further up north by a good friend Ben Searle of Searley Talk Sports. Searley, welcome back again, and you're in your usual studio. How did the weekend go?
Yeah, unfortunately, the boys went down to Massey. It was a tough day at the office, wet conditions. It was almost draw-like. Every time someone was tackled, the water would spray up everywhere. Not quite the same humidity as in Lautoka, though. But yeah, we went down 29 points to 12. So convincingly beaten. Massey were just too good on the day, Paulie. But hey, we live to fight another day. The boys have the bye this week, and we're doing a bit of team bonding, which basically just means beers and ripping into each other for a couple hours. So can't wait for that.
Wee bit different to the team bonding that Pity's getting into up there at Forest Lakes.
Yeah. I'm sure the coaches are having a couple. Pity just won't mention it.
No, I don't drink. I haven't drunk for a couple of years now just because I've been coaching First 15, but we're definitely drinking Cokes and Sprite while the boys are looking at us going, can I have a fizzy drink?
Yeah.
Righty, I've got a question for you guys, and in the spirit of the Anzacs, I thought that this week I'd get you to name your best Super Rugby player to come out of Australia. We'll start with you first, Searley, and there've been a number of very, very good Australian Super Rugby players, but if you had to pick one, who would you I guess put your finger on?
Well, straight away, when I think of Australian rugby, I think of Pity's old mate, George Gregan. So it's tough to go past him. I think the Brumbies, most successful Aussie side, and then George Gregan, like he's been the head of that spear for so long. I think he's the most capped Wallaby. He's just a player that everyone, when you hear them talk about George Gregan, they all speak about him with the utmost respect. He loved to chip away at people, but he could certainly back that up. And I think he was a great mix of a real character and a quality footballer and a great leader as well. So it was a toss-up for me between him and Stephen Larkham, but I went with George Gregan.
Yeah, and he always seemed to know what Pity was doing when they played. He would.
It's not that hard, Paulie. It's not that hard.
You would have played against you would have played against, of course, Gregan and Larkham. For you, Pity, I guess, who was the standout Australian Super Rugby player?
Ooh, I've actually got a couple, and they pretty much from the same team, which is George Smith was one. He was another annoying guy that was good solid over the ball. And he was, I'd say, close to being the version of Richie from that side. And the other one would be David Pocock. I mean, oh man, he's a bit of a weapon when it comes to just the utility of him going from 7 to 8 or even to 6, and he's in that same fold as George Smith. So yeah, I'd probably say those two out of Australia.
Yeah, I guess it's very hard to look past that Brumbies team that won, was it a couple of Super Rugby championships, and the likes of George Gregan, Stephen Larkham, who played over 100 tests for the Wallabies, and just seemed to glide into the back line at times, which was really strange for a first. He just seemed to, if there was a gap there, he just seemed to know how to just slide through it without looking like he was running he's one of those players that doesn't look like he's running very fast, but I'm guessing if you're on the field with him, he just goes whoosh and he's gone. And of course, Joe Roth, I think, was another one from that era. George Smith, as you say, the great open side. For mine, it's very, very hard to look past one of those Brumbies because they were so successful during that period. But there have been plenty of very, very good Australian players come out of Super Rugby. Well, let's have a brief look at last week and how things went. And I guess we start with the first game of round 9 last week. And it was over there in Fiji in the humidity. And the Hurricanes, who made wholesale changes, and this is, I guess, this has tripped a number of teams up when they've headed over to Suva to take on the Drua. They make a whole heap of changes, thinking this is the game they're going to pick up a win and get back home. Well, the Hurricanes did that, but in the end, they won fairly comfortably, Surly.
Yeah, I think it was a great flex of their depth. We spoke about their B-side a couple of weeks ago, trotting out some names that I think many Super Rugby franchises would love to get their hands on. So they've certainly got the cattle to be able to do it. And just another great display from the Canes. They end that Drua unbeaten streak at home. I think for me, the most impressive thing was their defence. They made 236 tackles in this game compared to the Drua's 50. So the fact that you can still come away from that with a 23-point win is massive. They were down to 13 men there for a while as well. I thought Brad Shields was huge. They didn't come away from it unscathed with that injury to Asafo Armour. And on top of Roygaard, that really starts to hurt. But like we touched on just before, the depth in the squad is really strong, and they just look so confident at the moment. They'll back themselves to play multiple different styles of rugby and come away with the win. So another box tick there for the Hurricanes in really tough conditions in front of a crowd which was relentless. I think the referee had to ask the players to shut up a couple times because the scrum set calls were all over the show due to how loud the crowd was, which I haven't heard before. So well done to the Fijian fans.
Pity, look, another major injury picked up by the Canes in that game with Asafo Aumua. And this is really going to test their depth now because along with Roygaard and Aumua, that's a big, big chunk of two of their very best. I mean, the whole team has been playing very well, but those two were playing pretty much right at the top of their game. So can you see the Canes continuing on with this unbeaten streak for another few games?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've seen the depth. O'Reilly's come in, had the start and played pretty well actually, and probably not the same style player as a Suffolk, but he's obviously knows how to stick within his areas when it comes to the team structure and the game plan and all that. But I mean, he's been around the chats for a while. He's been in and out of that environment. Obviously, a new environment this year with a new head coach, but I just think that they are definitely going through this pretty well, and it doesn't matter who they pick to start that week. Every person that puts their hand up, delivers, and I know in the spine, 2 and a 9 is one of your key players. So, I think they're not going to be losing too much when with those two injuries because obviously the likes of TJ, who's stepped up again and was quite I guess put a stamp on the books for the coaching staff to hey I'm still here, I'm still doing my thing, and not only that, O'Reilly's been around long enough to understand how good he needs to be to try and get that starting role.
But we'll move on to the next game. Boy, oh boy, I'm not sure many people saw this one coming. Certainly not the Highlanders unable to score a point against the Reds, who were missing a couple of key players. You talk about Roygard and Omur being out for the Canes. Well, the Reds were without a couple of their big boys, and Tate McDermott and McRae due to suspension. And yet they put 31 points on the Highlanders and kept I guess the most impressive stat would be they kept the Highlanders scoreless early.
Yeah, pretty disappointing for the Highlanders being held to the donut. When we spoke about them at the start of the year, we spoke on that razzle, how much excitement and youth they play with. And it appears that a lot of that now has disappeared from their game. They look like a team that's just really lacking in confidence. And I'm a little bit worried for them because it appears to get worse for them each week. And this would have been a massive blow. Of course, they get back home this week, which will be great. But for me, this was their most disappointing performance of the year. Just errors. They lacked a lot of flow. They lacked direction. And they used to be a team where you could sit back and watch that back three just go to work and not quite know what they were going to dish up. And they brought that entertainment factor. And now they're just a side that's really battling. It was actually a tough watch, this game in general. And if you're a Highlanders fan, you probably left that one feeling quite deflated.
Pity, could you take any positives out of that game from a Highlander perspective? They really weren't in it right from the off.
Oh, I turned it off at half time. I was like, this isn't the team that I seen in those first four rounds that were energetic, like Shirley said. But I'm looking at from what I've seen, it looked like they were actually a bit tired. Like I don't know whether they're getting pumped on the old bloody in the fitness department during the week or not, but I just feel they're looking a bit tired, and I don't know whether that's the standards of previous years where they've first four rounds, they're all guns blazing. They look like a team that could go all the way, and then we get to about the middle of the competition and they're sort of almost burnt out. So yeah, I was quite disappointed in terms of watching them play on the weekend. I mean, they did create a few opportunities, they just didn't capitalize on it. And all credit to the Reds for hustling back and getting the turnovers or forcing a penalty because of the work ethic that they did off the ball.
But we talked about that champion Brumby side of years gone by, and this year's edition, we expected them to put up quite a bit of a fight against the Blues at Eden Park last weekend. They were 10.5-point underdogs, the Brumbies, against the Blues, and a lot of people were putting that Brumbies plus 10.5 into a number of their multis. Well. Somebody forgot to tell the Blues that the Brumbies were pretty good because the Blues were just outstanding. And you must be fizzing up there, Surly. 46-7 the Blues over the Brumbies. It was just fantastic display of all-round rugby in all sorts of conditions too.
Yeah, it was a bit of a clinic from the Blues in the wet, and the conditions didn't stop them from playing their style of footy too, which was probably the most impressive part. For me, this was a massive tick for the Blues forward pack. I think the Brumbies, especially at set piece time, they've been so strong over the last few years, but this Blues pack under Vern Cotter, they look like they've added a real edge to their game, a bit of mongrel and a real hard-nosed attitude, which perhaps they haven't had over the last couple of years. Guys like Dalton, Hoskins, both having career best years, it seems. teams. So the Blues are firing at the moment. And then that defense, like we've touched on it a bit now, but they've conceded 34 points total in the last 5 games. They're averaging under a converted try per game against them. If you can run that up throughout this competition, you're going to go a long way to winning it, because we've seen sides are capable of scoring points. But if you can restrict them to under 7, you're in the box seat straight away. I also thought Funaki, the halfback, was really good. He's a young lad who's had a lot of potential for a couple of years, and he's been earmarked for big things. But I think the development in his game ever since Christie's been out injured has been massive. And then Taylor and Clark, still 2 of the best strike weapons on the wing. So for me, this Blues side is probably the most balanced it's been over the last couple of years. And when you think there's still guys like Perifeta and co to come back, they're looking pretty sharp, and they're hot on the Hurricanes' heels there.
Pity the Blues were super impressive there, and it sets up a massive meeting up north. Was it round 12, I think, when the Hurricanes travel up to take the Blues on, I think 11th or 12th of May. When you look at that Blues side, it's very hard to identify weaknesses at the moment.
No way, Shirley. There's always weaknesses, brother. There's always weaknesses. It's just how you manipulate the system. No, I mean, like Shirley said, they're doing really well in terms of the style of footy that they're playing. They've maintained it, especially in the conditions. And not only that, the defence system is a massive one. So I'm assuming that they'll definitely be keeping a close eye on how to contain some of the threats that the Hurricanes will have against them in a few weeks' time. But they're looking really good. We did talk about them at the start of the season that pre-season they look really well. Obviously, they had their hiccup with their loss. And no one predicted, but they're definitely one of the other form teams in the competition. And not only that, I guess we did talk about the Chiefs being a team that would be either 1 or 2. They just haven't capitalized on a lot of the opportunities I felt, but the Blues, I feel like they've just been under the radar a little bit. Everyone's just been keeping an eye on them, but not actually sitting down and analysing how good they've been playing. So those boys will just be going about their business, making sure that they continue that for the next few weeks.
All 12 fans at Eden Park would have enjoyed that performance as well. They looked fizzing.
Yeah.
Might have been
Well,
a few in the Airbnb there too.
I'm sure there'll be more Hurricanes fans at Eden Park when the Canes travel up there in round 12 to take on the Blues. So looking forward to that. It was a short round last week, so final game of the round. And usually, as sure as money in the bank, you could bet on the Crusaders to come home for you against a team like the Force. And they travelled over there. They were very, very warm favourites with the bookies. And someone forgot to tell the Force, because the Force were just they were just too good. This is a Crusaders side that must seriously now be into a, I guess, not panic mode, but like, what do we have to do to turn things around here? They had some players coming back. If you have a look at the pack, Blackadder was back in there. Franks and Moody in the front row. This was not a weak Crusaders team, but boy, oh boy, they were made to look that way against the Force early.
Yeah, I'm about ready to put a line through them now. I think we've been holding on with optimism that they were going to kick on. But like you just touched on, they're starting to get a lot of troops back in the results, and the way they're playing doesn't really seem to be changing. I thought they were their own worst enemy. Lots of handling errors, some really lazy penalties at breakdown as well. Bit of a lack of structure there. It's so un-Crusader-like. We're just really not used to seeing this. And I couldn't help but think, while I was watching this game, how did they beat the Chiefs 3 or 4 weeks ago? Because they looked like a completely different side to what they did on that night. Yeah, they're battling, man. Full credit to the Force. I actually thought they played quite well, but I think it was more the Crusaders. They're just so far off the boil at the moment that this really is just a development year for them. I know they're going to stick with Rob Penny, and he's certainly a bloke that won't quit on any job. We all know that. So yeah, they've got a few weeks to try and right their wrongs. If they lose to the Rebels this week in a hot Rebels side, then yeah, I'm done. They won't be winning from there.
Pity, are you ready to throw the Crusaders in the bin and just say, okay, we'll start planning for 2025? Surely this is a team that can still sneak into the playoffs, and if they do, would represent a very, very dangerous challenge.
Ah, you'd think after all the corridor we've been having about it, you'd think that they need to, they would have won on the weekend because it's important for them to actually start, you know, building confidence within themselves and their structures and their game plan. I know what they need. They need 14 other fucking Xavier Reeses. He's on fire, and I'm just thinking, well, how can you repeat that energy with the rest of the players that are on the field? Because I mean, it doesn't matter what he does. He's pretty much beating defenders. If he's not beating defenders, he's becoming a bloody flanker, stealing the ball at the breakdown. He's actually in top form at this stage, and I just feel like everyone needs to be on that same bandwagon of confidence because he's just out there doing everything possible to try and bring that positivity to his teammates. But like Suli said, there's one Crusaders team I've never seen play like this. We know how good they are around set piece, the structures, in their game plan, and I feel like they've gone away from what they have known in the past, and that's pretty much just beat people up, be the bully, the playground bully, and frustrate the hell out of people. We haven't seen that. I think we've only seen it once, and that was that win against the Chiefs.
Well, I think they are frustrating people, and those people are Crusader fans at the moment. They would be very, very frustrated at the moment, Searly. And as Pity said, Severies has stood up in pretty much every single game this season. He has been by far and away. If you were giving away MVP points for each game, he'd be in the talk every single time. He's almost like an Artie Sarver at the moment. Like he's doing everything he can for this team to get them over the line, and they're just making sometimes just errors, unforced errors that Crusader teams just don't make or haven't made in the past. So I guess when you're in a team, and maybe Pity could help us out here, when you get in a team where losing becomes a wee bit of a habit, um, behind the scenes, do some players just start to, not purposely, but you can see that their heads down and they're struggling to pick things up. They're struggling to just see the positive side of things, and it can just snowball. And you almost think, well, let's just write this season off, Pity.
Oh, I wouldn't say write it off. I mean, there's still development that needs to be done for some of those players. So this is, in terms of bleeding them into this competition, it'll be, getting some gains from all the learnings that they've had in each game. Not only that, how can they make that a lot better if they're going to be moving forward in this like in a professional environment? Yeah, it might take a bit of toll on the old thought process and mentality of wanting to be a winner every day. But I mean, as long as they're showing up, trying to put their best foot forward, trying to tick all the boxes because I know their environment is massive. They bring a lot of their old boys back into the fold, and just to listen to some of the corridor that they had when they were wearing the jersey. So there's they have a very very strong culture within that franchise, and obviously this we might as well just say it. It's definitely a write off for them. But in saying that, they can still definitely get some gains out of it. There's a lot of positives that they can still get out of this. And, I guess for those young boys that are applying their trade, how do they become better players not just on the field but off the field as well is a key one, because I know a lot of those ex-Crusader boys spent a lot of time off the field as well, working on their craft. And this is before they had their kids. Now that they obviously, as soon as they have their kids, they spend quite a bit of time with their whānau. So there are definitely opportunities for them to grow.
Speaking of Crusader old boys doing the hard yards, I just saw Andrew Mertens on Breakfast TV this morning, and he had a huge graze up the side of his head along there, and he had just come off one of those, I think, e-bikes or something only a few days ago, and taken half his face off. But he was still going strong, and looked like he could probably slot straight back into that number 10 Crusader jersey if they actually wanted him. So
is that symbolic of their season? They're just falling off the e-bike, but they're not quitting. That they'll still get up and push on, but it's just not working for them.
Very much so. Right, let's look ahead to this week, and we've got a full round of matches for round 10. Starting down south, the Crusaders back home, okay, and the bookies have got them as very, very warm favourites. They're $1.22. Rebels, $4.20. The draws at $21. Crusaders, 11.5-point favourites, and the game total set at 57.5. Surly, this is the week where the Crusaders start returning to their old self, surely? That they get back on the e-bike and they start pedaling away?
Well, it's round 10. We've been saying it for 9 rounds now, ever since they lost that first game. I mentioned before that I'm about ready to put a line through them, but I still have them to win on my bet slip, which is pretty crazy. But I think that just comes down to this Crusaders side and the reputation that they hold. The Rebels, top 4 side. Won 5 of their 8 games so far this year, and they'll be sniffing a massive opportunity off the back of a bye to come over and pull off a win. They'll still come in as underdogs despite looking at the ladder in their recent form. So they have nothing to lose, really, and all the pressure is on the Crusaders this week. The key for me will be whether they still have the confidence in their systems. I think we spoke before on losing environments and what's the first thing to go. I think there will be questions starting to be asked around their game plan, their structures, and if they're good enough to win games playing the method that they are at the moment. So hopefully they can stick to their kind of team structures and not go away from that too much. Just play some good footy, get it in Severice's hands as much as you can, and hopefully there's a good crowd as well. I think there's buy one, get one free for the fans down there in Christchurch, so they're calling on the fans to get behind them, and that could prove to be the difference.
But, did the bye come at the wrong time for the Rebels? They were on a 3-game win streak before the bye last week. Sometimes when the bodies are a wee bit battered, it's a bit of a godsend, and you take that extra week's rest and you come back rejuvenated. They just seem to be on a wee bit of a roll before the bye. I think they beat the Highlanders just prior to the bye. They beat the Drua a couple of weeks before that. They were looking very, very good. Can you see them getting up down south against the Crusaders here?
Wow. I actually think that the Rebels could definitely sniff an opportunity here. To continue the form that they've had with all the distractions in the backgrounds, for them to be where they're sitting at the moment on the table is huge to the players in terms of what they're achieving. And it doesn't matter on what's happening off the field. On the field, they're doing exactly what they need to do, and they're playing some great footy. So I see this as an opportunity for them, whether they rest players because they feel like maybe they'll target other teams, or if they want to try and continue this momentum that they've had and see if they can cement an opportunity to actually have a home quarter final. Because the way that they're tracking, they're definitely in line for it.
Right, we'll move on because there's plenty of games to look at with it being Anzac weekend. Next game, Waratahs hosting the Chiefs. The Waratahs just a point outside the top 8. The Chiefs just a point outside the top 4. The Tars, $4.60. The Chiefs, $1.18. The draw at $21. The Tars are 14.5-point underdogs at home, and the game total set at 57.5. Surely, does the 14.5-point start that the Tars are getting at home, does that attract you in any way?
It's an interesting number, isn't it? Just outside that 2 converted tries. So the bookies certainly know what they're doing because, to be honest, I'll probably rather back in the 13 plus just for that extra 1.5 points insurance. But for me now, this is the start of a massive month for the Chiefs. Pity touched on before, they haven't quite lived up to that preseason hype. We expected them to be the 1 or 2 side in the competition. They got the Tars, the Force, Moana, and the Rebels. So they really need to go 4 from 4 and play some good footy throughout the stretch as well. So off the back of a bye, I think they would have taken the opportunity to freshen up. Damien McKenzie in some of the best form of his career. They've certainly got the troops to go over to Sydney and get the job done. So I expect them to get the win in 13 plus, and hopefully this is the start of a nice little 4-game period, which will see them shoot up the ladder.
Pity, can you see the Chiefs start to, I guess, rev things up from here on in into the run into the playoffs? They just start to build nice and slowly, and so that when they do hit the playoffs, they're at their peak. Can you take them at $1.18? Can you take them minus 14.5?
I definitely can't take them for minus 14.5. I mean, no, I think this is. I don't think they'll ease into this going sort of building slowly. I think this is their chance to actually work hard. Know that they got a few games that they could potentially walk into and win, but they're not going to be easy if they don't get their start right. So coming off the bye, I think this is going to be a huge game for them to set the tone for them as a team and help for that push for the back end of the season for to basically, like Shirley said, climb up the table. So this is definitely one where the Chiefs need to make sure that they show up and pretty much get straight into work and not let the foot off the accelerator and make sure that they get the start right so that it can progress for the next 4 weeks.
Right, the next game we're going to look at, the Brumbies Hurricanes, and the Blues certainly did the Canes no favours whatsoever. Brumbies will be hurting after that big loss last weekend. And of course, as Pity has told us before on the Pick and Go, Canberra is not the most exciting place to go at any time of the year, but certainly when it's starting to get a wee bit colder as well. So the Brumbies, do they look at a wee bit of value at $3? The Canes are at $1.42. The draw at $18. Brumbies getting 7.5 at home. Game total set at 55.5. Well, I'll go to you first this time, Pity. Brumbies $3 at home against the Hurricanes, a place where the Hurricanes have traditionally struggled.
Look, I don't think it matters where they go now. I think the way that they're playing, the style that they're playing, not only that, defensively they're getting better and better in terms of their connection. I think they're in a phase where they're not plateauing; they're trying to get better and better because it's not easy to, like we talked about, it's not easy to go to Fiji and play footy over there, and they managed to get the job done there. Obviously, last year they had that hiccup, which they wanted to learn from that, which they did. And going to Canberra is another one. You're going from humid, hot, with a bit of weather when we're going down to total opposite now. It's going to be quite cold, a ghost town, and the only thing that I enjoyed going there's one shop that had vintage league jerseys. So me and a few of the boys used to just pretty much purely go to that one shop every time just to see what other jerseys we could pick up.
Before we get to Shirley, what jersey did you pick up at the vintage league shop?
I've been a day one Broncos fan since Wally Lewis, since the King. So yeah. I definitely picked up a vintage Broncos jersey. But there was like the Bears. There was also the Illawarra Steelers, like heaps of the old Magpies. So a few of the boys, like I think Mata took a St. George one and a Steelers one. So I think he still might be rocking those. It's probably been about 10 years now since we went there and got them, and a few of the boys still wear them. Probably not
Just-
myself. I was skinny back then. I'm a few pies deep these days.
Hand them down to your kids now. Did you ever attend an NRL training with any of the teams, Pity?
I went to Newcastle. I had a family friend of mine, Ken Laban, who had a contact at the Newcastle Knights, and obviously had to get a bit of clearance from Smithy and co, with the three wise men at the time. And I spent a week in Newcastle with pretty much Joey Johns and that. So yeah, it was a pretty cool experience, just listening and taking things on from the goat around what he does, and just watching them sort of train with the boys. Man, I thought our contact sessions were huge. They were pretty much shoulder charging each other and loving it. And I'm thinking, where's the section where you go hide out and not play balls?
I'm a halfback, man. I'm a halfback. Yeah.
I go hide on the edge of the play where you
Yeah.
So yeah, I was with the Newcastle Knights for about a week.
Oh, sensational! And with, as you say, one of the goats. That's you, Shirley. What would you give up to just be a part of that?
Oh, it would be pretty elite. I'd give up even more to have a beer with Andrew Johns, I think, to be fair. The old after training sessions would be just as fun. But yeah, certainly jealous of that. And I think it's more common now that we see players doing it. You see guys like Ruben Love, who spent the off season with quite a few of the NRL boys getting in some sprint training and whatnot. And yeah, I think there'll be a lot of guys now looking across the ditch at a few codes and thinking that they would be interested in a few training sessions at the Newcastle Knights, that's for sure.
I'm not putting down his form solely to the fact that he's been over and done some sprinting with the NRL boys, but Ruben Love, his game has just stepped up 2 or 3 notches since last season. He's looking very, very good and must be in the frame for All Black selection when that first All Black squad is named by Scotty Robertson later this year. Right, we better move on because once again we go off on tangents and we start talking about vintage jerseys. Highlanders, here we go, $1.37. I'm not sure what the bookies have got them to score a point this week, but they're $1.37 to win the game. The Force, $3.20. The draw at $18. Highlanders are 8.5 point favourites, and the game total set at 58.5. Surly, boy, I would have hated to be at Highlanders training this week because I'm sure that they would have been they've probably been put through the ringer right now, and they will come out firing, I'm sure, for this game on the weekend, Highlanders.
Yeah, I think this one's just about putting a bit of pride back in the jersey. They need to show up in front of their home fans, so I'm sure we'll show up for them and put in a big performance. They're lacking confidence. They're starting to second guess themselves. Those young players look like they're not the same. They don't have that same spark as they do at the start of the year. So hopefully under the roof against a Force side who might be still hungover, celebrating their historic win against the Crusaders. It would be great to see the Landers go out there and put on a clinic. So I'll certainly be cheering for them. And I think they can get it done. They've got this game and then Moana as their next game as well. So 2 wins on the trot and you could completely change the narrative and find yourself pushing to get back into the 8. This week's incredibly important. And if they could pick up a bonus point as well, then that would be massive. To come away with this one with 5 points could rewrite their season.
Pity, you must be looking at this Highlanders squad and thinking that they cannot be as bad as they were last week. Surely they give something the fans to cheer about.
Yeah, exactly. Especially being at home, I think it's got to be a huge one. Hopefully, this week, they get their processes right. I think potentially they could be working on being outcome driven rather than process driven. So, I guess for them is making sure that they get their process right, get the game plan that's going to suit them, especially going up against the Force, who are coming off a huge win from the weekend gone. And then when they get to game day, they just play footy because my previous experiences of rugby, if you get the processes right, you get everything nutted down, tick all your boxes during the week. By the time kickoff happens, you just go out there and play footy because you've done all the prep, you've done all the hard work, and you've done all the homework on the opposition, not just yourselves as a team, but on the opposition, and try and turn some of these strengths into weaknesses. So when you get to game day, you pretty much go out there and play footy. So I'm hoping that they get their processes right this week. Don't be outcome driven. That they go into this game process driven, so that they actually get the outcome that they want.
Righty-ho, last game of the round, and it's a battle of the colours. Reds against the Blues. Reds, they're $3.80 at home. Blues are $1.27. The draw's at $21. The Reds are 10.5-point underdogs, and the game total set at 54.5. Surly, well, the Blues were just sensational last weekend. And the Reds, well, to be fair, were very, very good themselves. Both teams sitting inside the top 8. The Blues, of course, second place behind the Canes. Can you see the Reds giving the Blues a bit of a test here?
I think it'll be a test purely because it's the Reds in Queensland and they always rise at home. But I do like that points total to go the unders because everyone's struggling to score points against the Blues. So unless they score 54 of them themselves, then that could be a great bet. I think their D will be too strong. They look like a team that well and truly knows the way that they're playing and they've brought into it as well. And I think that forward pack from the Blues will be too strong for the Reds as well. So I expect the Blues to get the job done. Wouldn't be surprised if the Reds make a contest out of it for at least 60 minutes, but I think the Blues will keep that momentum rolling and be too good.
Pity the Blues continue on their rollicking ways, or the Reds give them a bit of a challenge this weekend?
I've said it before, Paulie. When it comes to battles against the boys over the ditch, there, I'll always try and back our Kiwi boys. Did that last week. Look what bloody happened. Landers got through a donut. Oh my god, no! So it's a tough one now, especially since the Reds done pretty well to hold them to a donut. I mean, geez, when I'd probably still stick with the Blues. I still think their style of footy is going really well. They're pretty much moulded well, and I think they're in a place where they're a little bit like the Canes. That doesn't matter who they put on the field that day, whether it's the starting 15 that they had, or even if it's boys that are coming on to start, even though they haven't got the same amount of minutes. I reckon they'll still get the job done. So I think the depth's there for them, and I think they're just going to continue on their way.
Right. Let's get to the punting part of the program, and I'll have a look at last week and what happened, and it wasn't pretty reading, to be fair. We'll go with Pity, who's leading the way. He's still up $418.20 for the season, but he was unsuccessful last week, and that's the first time in a long, long time for Pity. In fact, I don't think he's had a week where he hasn't had at least one winning bet. Well, that all changed last week. He took a $50 double, Brumbies into the Landers. Boy, oh boy, how far away from the right could you be?
No, Jesus.
He then went TJ Perenara to be a try scorer in the game against the Drua. Unfortunately, no. And then he wanted the first scoring play in the Drua Canes match to be a Drua penalty goal. And unfortunately, that didn't come true either. So no success with Pity last week.
Pity, you lost that Perth bet 77-7, mate. That's a tough one to swallow.
Surly, he had a 4-leg multi, Canes, Reds, Blues. I'll tell you what, we're looking very, very good here. And the last leg was the Crusaders, all of them head to head.
Put a line through them.
That's it. They're dead to him now.
Yeah.
Hey, good
and
for
then
me.
the other, he had another multi, Reds by 1-12 into the Blues by 1-12. Well, he got the winning teams right.
Yeah.
Just those margins that are letting him down. So no good for Surly there. I just went for a double, 2 try scorers. Sevu Reece to score a try. Great. Into Mark Talia. The Blues scored, what was it, 6 or 7 tries, and Mark Talia was not one of the try scorers.
He looked good too. He played well.
Oh, gee, fair dinkum. So we'll go ahead to this week. We might as well start with you, Surly. Let us know where you are putting your $100 this week, and hopefully you can get out of this $112.50 hole that you're in at the moment.
Yeah, I've gone deep to the well here, and this is one for the punting purist because I've got all 4 different options in a 4-leg multi, which you got to love. I've got a head-to-head bet, a total points bet, a home point start bet, and a try bet. I've cooked it all into one pot. I've gone the Blues head-to-head against the Reds at $1.27. I've gone the over total points in the draw versus Moana. That's set at 62.5. Last year, there was 96 points scored when these two teams played each other. So I'm backing there to be a bit of a high-scoring affair there. Chiefs by over 7.5, the try bet option against the Tars. And then I've gone the home point start for the Brumbies of plus 12.5. I think the Canes win, but I think the Brumbies can keep it within 12.5 without Almoa and Roygaard. So you multi those up together, $4.67. Misses by 1, I'll get my money back as a bonus bet. Cheers to the TAB. There you go, punters. You're welcome.
There's a hell of a lot of
There's a
confidence.
lot going on here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, Pity. Well, my tactic now is to confuse Paulie so much that he writes it down wrong, and then I convince him I've had a win, and then I get the profit added to my account. Great stuff.
The big thing for me was the confidence and the tone of voice that Surly actually just rattled those multis off. It's almost like this is a good, I am certain this will happen. As we know, that's not always the case with Surly and his multis, but we'll hopefully be looking back on this next week and going, yes, another good collect by Surly. Pity, you're the shining light in terms of punting for us. Over $400 up for the season, so give us your wisdom, please.
I was going to go with a double with the Canes getting over the Brumbies by 13 and over. And then I had the Blues to get the job done in Brisbane, and it'll be 13 and over for $50. And then I'm going to be cheeky and back myself and say I'm going to put 50 on TJ to get the top try scorer this week.
To be what? A try scorer?
Yep. Not the first, just try
Just
scorer.
a try scorer.
So first try scorer, nice. Chuck it in. Yep. We need him to lose, Paulie. Chuck him in.
Listen to him, Paulie. Don't listen to him.
He didn't sound as convinced as I did. He didn't sound as convinced as I did. Come on.
Right, I'm going to go very similar to how I went last week. One bet, $100 on. I'm going to go for a try scorer in the Crusaders game into a try scorer into the Blues game. In the Crusaders, I'm not going to go Sevu Reece this time. I'm going to go Blackadder. Blackadder to score a try into Mark Talia to score a try. So the teams haven't been named yet, but I'm sure if those boys no, and I'm pretty sure those two boys will be named. I'm just going to multi those two up. Blackadder into Talia, both to score a try. There we go. We've got the tipping comp as well, and I'm just having a look.
Don't ask.
Where is Powser? Where's Surly? I don't see them.
I haven't had a look.
Surly's in 72nd, climbing up, slow but solid approach.
Powser had a mare here, and he got one pick right there on the weekend.
I like how you talk like it's not you too, Pity. When you're not winning, you're like, yeah, that mate Powser, he had a shocker. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Moose Mahan, who is now top of the tipping comp on 40 points. In second place, Dan, is that 28? Dan 28 or Dan?
Yep, he was
Dan
leader last
28,
week.
39 and a half. And in third place, C. Poissy, 69,
Yay! Here he
37.50.
Hanging in there.
Yeah, well, and keep hanging in there, punters, because there's not a lot separating most of you guys at the top of the table, because we've got some bonus bets to give away at the end of the regular season. Even me, I'm actually climbing up the leaderboard, and I'm just outside the top 100. So I'm hoping to increase that success this week coming. I'm just having a look. Promotions, of course, as Surly sort of alluded to earlier. We've got the Oval Ball Mega Multi, which you can get stuck into this weekend. We've also got some same game claims on the Crusaders Rebels game, Waratahs Chiefs, Brumbies Hurricanes, Highlanders Force, and Reds Blues. So 5 games this week of Super Rugby are eligible for the same game claim. So if you like your same game multis, that's certainly something to get stuck into. I think we've done it again, guys. Hopefully next week I'll have Pity in studio sitting next to me.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good. The camp will be over, and you'll be looking forward to the first week of competition. Or is this Saturday the first week of competition proper for your boys?
No, they got the weekend off. We had about 4 preseason games already, where we got to select our first 15 squad, and so this week's just been an opportunity for us to map out everything that we need to take into the season. So obviously, attack side of it and the defense side of it too. But yeah, next week we play against Hastings, I think it is, up in Gisborne. Start of the transit competition, and then the week after we play Napier. Before we start our first traditional game of the year, and also our first round of competition in Wellington against St. Pat's Town.
Oh, big game. Where Surly, Northcote looking to bounce back this week. Oh no, you've got the bar. Yeah, bounce back big time at the bar.
Yeah, we'll get the 4 points guaranteed from this one, so it'll be good. Climb up the ladder. And yeah, a bit of bonding. We'll come back a better side for it. We've got a tough run after that. 3 of the big dogs back to back to back. So yeah, good chance to rest up, recover, and yeah, watch some good footy on telly. Anzac round.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, looking forward to it. There's plenty of footy on telly this weekend, with it being Anzac round. Wherever you are, I hope you enjoy a bit of footy as well. And thanks for listening to the Pick and Go podcast once again. We'll be back next week for a preview of the upcoming round and a review of how well we've done punting-wise on round 10 of Super Rugby Pacific 2024. See you later.